Welcome back. Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland announced today that she's resigning from Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's cabinet, just hours before the federal government is expected to deliver its fall economic statement. For more on the surprise resignation, we're joined by Mark McQueen. He's founder of Wellington Growth Partners. He's also a former advisor in the government of Brian Mulroney. Thanks for coming in.
Morning.
Your reaction to this was Bombshell News. I should tell people, you write a Substack, a blog on a Substack, and just yesterday you posted that Chrystia Freeland was likely to be the, quote, fall gal. So you saw this coming. I'm not sure you saw it coming before the statement was actually released.
Well, the end of my Substack is she should resign. You can't fire me, I quit. Given what's been an interesting kind of 5-6 month process, right? In July, the Prime Minister's office was allegedly unhappy with Minister Freeland's communication skills around economic issues, and they were chasing Mark Carney to potentially replace her. And then that Sunday in mid-July, Trudeau met with Mark Carney allegedly to try and rope him into coming on this sinking ship and help fix the Liberals' polling and political challenges, and he clearly declined, which was very wise of him to do at the time, I thought. And then this past week, it was fascinating to see these things resurrect. And, there's the heroine story here, and then there's the villain story with Ms. Freeland. The heroine story is that she's standing up, as she said in her letter to the Prime Minister of this morning, to, we need to maintain our fiscal flexibility. We've got these tariff threats coming from the U.S., and political gimmicks, as she called them, the 250 checks and the GST, temporary GST credit, were a bad idea, right? Now, she's just spent a few weeks going around the country saying these were good ideas and that they were worthy. So I'm not quite sure when she decided that what she had been touting was now a bad idea, and I might have been on Friday when the Prime Minister said to her, I'd like you to move jobs.
Well, when you're a member of cabinet, you're a member of a team, and you may have to advocate things that you don't personally believe in. But things obviously reached some kind of breaking point since then. We're just going to quickly show viewers 3 segments from the remarkable letter that Chrystia Freeland has released. Upon reflection, she says, I have concluded that the only honest and viable path forward is for me to resign from the cabinet. She says, for the past number of weeks, you and I, the person she's addressing, of course, is the Prime Minister, have found ourselves at odds about the best path forward for Canada. And then perhaps most remarkably, she refers to costly political gimmicks, which can only mean the 2 things that Mark McQueen has just referred to, the GST tax holiday and the checks for $250 million. She says we can ill afford them, and they make Canadians doubt that we recognize the gravity of the moment. So you've been an advisor in the government of Brian Mulroney. We often hear some level of tension between a finance minister and a prime minister is a good thing, and can perhaps
normal. Frankly, it's normal.
Normal, and can lead, I assume, to better decision making if it's handled properly. But this level of tension became dysfunctional.
Look, in '86, Michael Wilson was tagged in a Saturday Night Magazine piece that my dad wrote about being the fall guy. Right? Prime ministers always have the right to blame their finance ministers for whatever's going wrong in the economy or in the country at that time, and that goes with the job. Now, Mr. Wilson lasted 7 years, which is a great run, and then when Mazankowski got the role in '91, you know what? Mulroney was already below 20%, and it didn't really matter who had that job for the final 2 years. And I think that's the challenge that Mr. Trudeau is going to find is now, whether it's Carney running in Ottawa South in some by-election next year and taking the finance portfolio, or somebody else, the trajectory of our economy is surely more than one person can handle at this stage. And Trudeau's credibility, I think, is, at least in the eyes of Ms. Freeland, obviously just gone completely.
You say Carney was wise not to come aboard in the summer. Now, we understand that the sequence of events here is that Trudeau told her yesterday that she was no longer going to be finance minister. He's got to have somebody in mind for the finance. And you would think so. You don't think it's going to be Carney, do you?
Look, I wouldn't do it if I were him, right? There's no point in giving up his aura to try and help Trudeau win re-election next year? I mean, how is that good for him if his goal ultimately is to be Liberal leader and the Prime Minister? But there may be also emotional and nationalistic tugs that he's feeling to try and help save our economy from what has clearly been a really tough few years under these Liberals.
You also think Trudeau has received bad advice from his senior staff?
Look, it's a tough job, and I know that. The challenge, I think, that I think Ms. Freeland mentions this very subtly in her letter. Have the last year's policies been about preserving Trudeau in the role, or about doing things that are good for the economy? And this past week, they were talking about encouraging pension plan investment in the Canadian economy. Trudeau had a meeting here 8 years ago with global and domestic pension plans and sovereign wealth funds about investing in Canadian infrastructure. Bill Morneau was Minister of Finance at the time, and Trudeau was commanding the head of that meeting. And you know what? Nothing happened. And this is the problem this government has, is that they might have a good idea, and once they get through that first press conference and that press release, they forget about it. And now they're going to recycle that this coming week with a new version of the same old idea, only for a different part of the economy. And I think that's why Canadians have gone sour on this government.
Morneau said in his book and elsewhere, excuse me, that he left because the government was not as concerned with economic productivity and growth as it should have been, and that when policy announcements were getting ready, the PMO staff would want a bigger number attached to it because that would be better, they thought, politically. It appears now Chrystia Freeland thinks the same thing. Is that your read?
There's no question that you need to get reelected to be a politician of any longevity. I don't mind the idea that you're trying to reverse engineer what you think the population might want, but if that is going to be at the expense of the economy, clearly that was the wrong choice.